Hi everyone, welcome to TESPERT India. In this session, we will learn about 5 golden rules to solve any RC. We will go one by one, and at the end of this session, we will apply these rules to solve a passage. So, before that, we can understand RCs from two perspectives. The first one is the types of RC that are being asked, and the second way is to understand is the types of questions that are being asked. The most important activity while solving RC passages is reading, and there are two ways to read. The first one is the passive reading, we all know that, and the second one is active reading. But what actually means passive reading? So, passive reading simply means reading without thinking, which means superficial reading. Whereas active reading is, in active reading, a reader tries to understand each and every para of a particular RC. So we must read actively while solving any passage, while solving any RC. So here is the golden rule number 1. The central idea combined is equal to the overall central idea. So take any RC. After reading each and every para, write down the central idea. So central idea is also known as the main point of the para. So write down each and every main point of all the paras, and the central idea of each para shouldn't be more than 15 words. So the central idea normally lies between 10 to 15 words. See, let's say if we have an RC like this. So let's say this RC consists of 3 paras. So this is para number 1, and this is the second paragraph, and this is the third paragraph. So what you must do is first figure out the central idea or the main point of passage 1 of para 1, and then move on to para 2 and identify the central idea of paragraph 2, and then move on to paragraph 3 and identify the main point of paragraph 3. And when you combine all these 3 main points, then you will get the overall main point, the overall central idea of the whole passage, right? So the central idea combined of all the paragraphs is equal to the overall central idea of the passage. Understood? So why is this kind of approach important? Just think about it. See, because if you follow this approach, then the chances of understanding the RC are very high, and you no need to come back to the passage again and again while solving questions, right? So it is highly recommended to follow this kind of approach while reading any passage. And let's move on to the golden rule number 2, which says that while you are reading a passage, focus on that and don't mix your mind or opinion with the author's mind or opinion. See, this simply means that if the author is informing you something, just know about it. If the author is trying to persuade you with certain information, you must be persuaded with that information, right? So read with an open mind so that you will get to know what the author is actually trying to tell you, right? What the author is actually trying to inform you. So read with an open mind. Don't mix your mind with the author's mind or the author's opinion. And the third rule is don't try to remember or memorize every detail, right? So if you take any RC, we have 3 to 4 or 4 to 5 paragraphs. You no need to memorize or remember each and every detail of the paragraphs. See, let me take a simple example. When you watch a movie, do you memorize each and every dialogue and conversation of that movie? Do you memorize? No, right? It's so stupid to memorize each and every word, each and every dialogue in a particular movie. And if someone asks you to summarize the movie, even if the movie is a 2-hour movie, you'll summarize within 2 minutes. I just want to compare RC with a movie, especially Indian movies. See, what's the structure of a movie? See, we have the first half of the movie, right? And we can summarize the first half in 2 to 3 lines, right? In 2 to 3 lines we can summarize the first half, and then we have the interval twist, and then we have the second half, and we can also summarize the second half in 2 to 3 lines, and then we have the conclusion, right? We have conclusion here. So after this the movie gets ended. And come to the structure of an RC. So structure of any RC, so we have a para, right? We can summarize this para in 2 to 3 lines. That is the central idea or the main point of this para. And we have second para and we have third para. We can summarize all these within 2 to 3 lines or 1 or 2 lines. And finally we will arrive at a conclusion, right? Conclusion of the RC. So the author concludes finally. If you compare these two, the structure of a movie and the structure of any RC, these two are almost similar. So I have just taken this example to make you understand, especially the beginners, so that they get a overall view of an RC, right? Let's move on to the fourth rule: avoid reading quickly. This is the biggest mistake where many aspirants commit this. If you try to read a passage quickly, then the chances of rereading the passage are quite high, and also you won't be able to understand the passage. You may not be able to understand it, and you may not be able to frame the central idea of each and every para of the RC. So you have 60 minutes to solve 24 RCs and 10 verbal questions in CAT. Even if you attempt 20 questions correct out of 34, you'll definitely score 95 plus percentile, right? So just you just attempt at least 20 questions out of 34 questions. This will definitely fetch you 95 plus percentile. And if you attempt 23 questions out of 34, 23 correct. So if 23 questions are correct out of 34, you'll definitely score 99 plus percentile. So don't be in a hurry to solve RCs, to avoid rereading and also to avoid making mistakes while solving the questions, right? Let's move on to the fifth rule. Don't be afraid of vocabulary. So if you do not have any idea of the meaning of a particular word in a sentence or in a paragraph, you can skip that sentence, and you can also think as if that sentence were not there in that passage, and you can continue reading. Or else you can also edit that particular sentence and you can continue reading the passage. And even if you skip that particular sentence in which you face difficulty in understanding the meaning of the word, the central idea of the para and the central idea of the passage doesn't change. So please remember that. Of course, if anyone is very good at vocabulary, then he will definitely have a slight edge over others. But it doesn't mean that all the aspirants who are not very good at vocabulary face difficulty in attempting RCs. So don't worry about your vocabulary. You can simultaneously improve vocabulary by reading articles, by reading different magazines and all those. So don't be afraid of vocabulary if you do not know that particular word. Let's apply all our learnings in this passage. So if you want, you can pause the video and try to read this passage. Contemporary internet shopping consumer was a perfect storm of choice anxiety. Research has consistently held that people who are presented with a few options make better, easier decisions than those presented with many, helping consumers figure out what to buy amid an endless sea of choices. Um, Choice online has become a cottage industry unto itself. Many brands and retailers now using the marketing buzzwords such as curation, differentiation, and discovery as they attempt to sell an assortment of stuff targeted to the ideal customer. Companies find such shoppers through the data gold mine of digital advertising, catalog which can catalog people by gender, income level, personal interests, and more. So, if you read the passage, the contemporary internet shopping. So, here we are introduced to choice anxiety, right? So, what is meant by choice anxiety? Whenever you are offered too many choices, you will be in a dilemma on what to choose. So, if you are offered fewer choices, then you will make better decisions. You will have some better clarity on what to buy, right? So the first part of the first para is the introduction to choice anxiety, and let's move on to the next part. Just read this, read the next part till here, and if we observe, if we go through the next part of that, companies are now trying to reduce the choice anxiety by targeting their customers through the data gold mine of digital advertising. So, the second part of this para talks about the emergence of the online services and how they the differentiation and the discovery to their targeted customers. So, the central idea of the first paragraph is the introduction to choice anxiety, that's the meaning of the choice anxiety, and how the online services emerged to mark this issue, right? So, you need not write each and every word, you must summarize the central idea of that within 10 to 15 words, right? So let's move on to the second paragraph. Read the paragraph, and if we go through the second paragraph, this para is introducing the startups that address the choice anxiety. So there are startups that address choice anxiety by giving limited set of choices. And how can we write the central idea of the second para? Let me write it here. So the main point of second paragraph is the startups that address the choice anxiety by giving limited set of products, right? So $1,000 mattress and $300 suitcase might solve choice anxiety for a certain tier of consumer, but the companies that sell them along with those that attempt. So if we read the whole para, so the third para says that for the higher class, that is for those people who have a lot of money have more number of choices, whereas the people who do not have much money have lesser number of choices. So it's all about how the consumer market is broken, that is how the consumer market is segmented. So how can we figure out the central idea or the main point of the third paragraph? So the segmentation of consumer market, that is the rich have many choices, whereas the poor have a very few choices. See, when you are writing the main point of any para, that need not be grammatically correct, but you have to just finish it off within 10 to 15 words, right? Let's move on to the fourth paragraph. For startups that promise accessible simplicity, their very structure still might eventually push them toward overwhelming variety. Most of these companies are based on hundreds of millions of dollars of venture capital, the investors of which tend to expect a steep growth rate that can't be achieved by selling one great mattress or one great sneaker. Okay, so if we go through this last paragraph, it says that the startups, after taking funds from the VCs, from the venture capitalists, are forced to increase the number of choices, right? So the central idea of the last paragraph is the choice anxiety startups with the funding from the venture capitalists forced to offer more choices. So let me write it here. So now we identified the main points of each and every paragraph. Now we will go through all the main points of all the paragraphs and figure out the overall main point of the passage. So in the first paragraph, we are introduced to the choice anxiety, the meaning of the choice anxiety, and also the emergence of the online services that address choice anxiety. Whereas the second paragraph talks about the various startups that address the choice anxiety by giving very limited set of products. And the third paragraph tells about the segmentation of the consumer market, and the rich have many choices, whereas the poor, the lower class people have a very few choices. And the last paragraph tells us the choice anxiety startups with the funding from the venture capitalists are forced to offer more choices to the customers, right? So what's the entire passage all about? It's all about the choice anxiety and how it has influenced the online services and how it has influenced various companies. Now my question to you is, what is the tone of the passage? Just think about it. What is the tone of the passage? See here, as the author is informing about something. In this case, he is informing us about choice anxiety. So he is giving some information. So the tone of the passage is informative, right? It's an informative RC. So here we figured out the central idea of each and every paragraph, and after writing each and every main point of the paragraphs, we arrived at the main point of the whole passage. So the same rule applies to any passage. So you won't commit any mistake in getting back to the passage while solving the questions, right? So after this, just try to solve some RC sets and try to use this method. If you are accustomed with this method, then you can solve any passage irrespective of the level of difficulty. Thank you very much, and all the very best.